Wonderful, wonderful.
Okay, let's see. Mary Lou, you there?
I'm here.
Hey, how are you today?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Thanks for asking. Kathy, you there? If you can hear me, Kathy, you're muted. And anyone that's not showing their video, it's not mandatory, but we'd love to see you if you don't mind sharing your video. It should be right beside the mute unmute. Just start video, either down in the bottom left or potentially up at the top if you're on a smartphone.
And welcome everyone. I will be here with Mr. Wade briefly for about 5 to 10 minutes. This is Lina from the support team. So if you do need any assistance, you can just let me know. You can unmute your microphone or message me in the chat and I'd be happy to assist you.
Great. Thanks, Lina. Always pretty. So if anybody's having any trouble getting your camera to work, or if you need help getting your self unmuted, Lina will be here for a little while and we'll be glad to help you. Just reach out to her by voice or through chat. Hi, Alice. How are you today?
I'm great. How about yourself?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful. Thank you. Okay. All right. So there's Mary. Hi, Mary. How are you? Do you go by Mary Jean?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, Mary Jean. We got Mary Lou and Mary Jean. So that's why I can keep the Mary straight. All right. Welcome. All right, let's see. Anne, you there? Looks like she's still connecting. Give her a minute to get in. Maria, you here?
Yes, thank you.
Hi. There you are. Okay, hi, welcome. Glad to have you. Terry?
Good morning, Wade.
Hey, Terry, how are you today?
Good, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful, thank you. It's supposed to be rainy here to North Carolina, but it's sunny instead, so guess we missed the rainstorms. That's okay.
Well, it's cold here in New Jersey.
Oh, really? I bet it is. It's supposed to get cold here tonight. It's supposed to get down to the 30s tonight, which is unseasonably cool for us this time of year.
Yeah, not good.
All right. I think I've heard Ann. Did you make it in?
I did make it in. I won't have a picture, but I'm in.
Okay. So it looks like, are you logged in twice on two different devices? Okay. Looks like you may be.
I'm signing out on one.
Okay. Yeah. So we're going to get a little bit of a feedback with this two devices, but it sounds like it's okay. So we should be all right. Okay, so we usually take the first 4 to 5 minutes to give everybody a chance to get logged in and get their technology working. So again, Lina will be with us just for a few more minutes. If you do need any help, reach out to her. But I think I've heard from everybody. Anyone here that I haven't heard from? Okay. All right, great. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started. There may be some additional people coming in. But we want to go ahead and get started. We got a lot to cover today. Let me just get one thing here. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with some of the housekeeping issues, and then we'll get into the actual agenda. So we'll start with me sharing my screen so you can see my screen, and I can move your pictures over here to my other monitor so I can still see everyone. There we go. So when I'm looking over here, I'm looking for your pictures, not looking out the window. And I will be muting several times during the course of the class. We're all at home and things happen. We pick up background noise. So whenever there is some background noise, I'll mute everyone. So just be sure to check and see if you're muted when you ask questions. I won't say if, I'll say when you ask questions and make comments. Please do ask questions and make comments. It makes the class more enjoyable for everybody, I think. All right. And in case anyone is having any trouble with the microphone, I do have the chat open as well. So you can reach me with the chat, but if your microphone is working, please just go ahead and ask your questions out loud. That way everyone else can hear your question and I'll make sure that I hear your question on a timely basis. But if you're having problems, again, that chat is now open. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. This is Excel Intermediate Topics and Tips. So welcome to the class. Thanks for joining. My name is Wade Yarbrough, and I'll be the guide for the class today. Very briefly, I come from a small town, 500 people in West Tennessee called Mason. It's just outside of Memphis, Tennessee. I have a degree in experimental psychology, but worked most of my career installing and training users on how to use healthcare information systems, primarily in hospitals, but worked some with doctors' offices and other organizations. So I've done a lot of adult training, both teaching college classes and training users. But what's great about Get Set Up is that you're here because you're interested in the topic. A lot of my career I spent training people that were at the class because their employer made them come, or it was a required class for their degree. And that's what Get Set Up is really all about, setting an environment where you can learn topics you want to learn with other people that are interested in the same topic, and where you can interact with the guide. One thing I like about the classes as well is that sometimes someone will ask a question and I don't know the answer to the question either, but someone else in the class does, and they'll unmute and give the answer. So if that happens, if you know an answer that I don't, please let us all know. That way I keep learning as well. I'm like the rest of you, I'm a lifetime learner, so I always like to continue learning as part of the classes. The session is being recorded, so anyone that is part of the class can request a copy of that recording. To do that, you just have to send an email to help@getsetup.io. I'm going to put that in the chat. Oh, Lina beat me to it. There it is. Great. I'll mention this again at the end of class as well. But just be sure to include the class name and the date you attended, because the recording is only available to people that participated in the class. We're also live streaming the class. So anyone that is joining via live stream, we want to welcome you to the class as well. Thank you so much for attending. But we do want to suggest that you actually register for classes, and that way you can interact with the other learners and interact with the guide and get the full Get Set Up experience. Finally, we're not paid to promote products. We are purely trainers, so all of our revenue comes from our training activities. In terms of the agenda today, this class is a follow-on to the Excel Basics class. So if you took that class, we kind of pick up where that class left off. We'll be talking about using math, logical, and text functions. We briefly talk about functions in the first class, so we'll take that to several different levels. We'll talk about how to work with large spreadsheets, sorting them, filtering them. We'll talk about creating charts and graphs. And finally, how to print spreadsheets. So that's the agenda. Let's get started. I'm going to narrow this down. It may be a little hard to read, but I will read all that off to you. I want to use most of the screen for Excel. And again, in that first class, we talk about what Excel is and how to get access to it and how to navigate. So if you haven't taken that class, you may still want to take that class. Email, was a question about whether we talk about how to email a single Excel spreadsheet. We talk about how to print, not about emailing. If we have time, we can take a look at that. That would probably be in the, we're probably going to end up having a advanced Excel class, depending on if people are interested in that. And I'll show you at the end of class how you can request different classes, because there's a number of things that people have asked for that aren't included in the first two classes. Okay. So we're going to just jump straight into the spreadsheet. And so I have a spreadsheet that I've pulled together for this class. So this is the advanced class on 4.1. And I'm going to move over these first few tabs are things we talk about in the first class. We're going to pick up in this tab, which is what I call calculators. And it's a way to show you about calculators if you're not familiar with the idea of creating calculators in Excel. They're handy things to have. This is just an example. There's lots of different calculators you can create, but it's also a good way to kind of review some of the things from the first class. And if you didn't take that first class, to get everybody set at the same level before we keep moving further. Basically what a calculator is a way to put all the information that you may be doing on a regular calculator or even throwing together a spreadsheet ad hoc, but make it very reusable for things that you do frequently. So in this case, the scenario is that you're part of an organization, could be a church group, a not-for-profit, whatever, but you have pizza parties once a month and you're in charge of handling that. And so this calculator helps you figure out how much it's going to cost and ordering the pizzas. So you put your assumptions in the top part of the calculator, how many guests are attending, how many slices of pizza each one's going to eat, how many slices per pie, what the cost is per pie, and what tip you're going to leave. And then you put all the calculations and it gives you the answer for what the cost is going to be so you can budget correctly. So let's build the calculator, and I'm going to go through some of this fairly quickly because it is review, but if you have questions about it, as always, just unmute and ask your question. So the first thing we want to know is how many total slices of pizza do we need? So that's going to be a formula. Formulas always start with an equal sign. So the total slices is going to be the number of guests, and I'm just going to click that. It fills in. I could type B4. It's easier and more accurate just to click. So it's the number of guests times the number of slices each guest is going to eat. Gives me 30 slices of pizza that I'm going to have available. How many pies am I going to need? So that's going to be another formula. So again, I put an equal sign. And that's going to be equal to the total number of slices I need, which is 30, divided by number of slices per pie, which is 8. And that's 3.75 pizzas that I need to order. When I call the pizzeria, they say they don't sell fractions of pizzas. So I need to round this. Rounding is, you could probably do with a formula, but I don't want to get that complicated. We can use functions. And functions are basically formulas that have been canned. And so to enter a formula, several ways to get to them. They're a function. They're under the formulas tab, but the quick way to get there is through the ribbon. And if you click on the sum here and the down arrow right beside it, it gives you commonly used functions, but it also gives you a link to more functions. If you click here, it shows you the functions you've used most recently. So frequently what you're looking for is going to be here. If it's not, you can type the name here. I know I want to round, so I would type round here and hit enter. And it shows me all the functions that have the word round in it. So I can round. And if you look at the bottom here, it tells you what that function does. Rounds a number to the specified number of digits. Round down, which it rounds down to 0. Round up, rounds up away from 0. That sounds like what I'm looking for. Let's try that one. So I'm going to click OK. And it has the function arguments. So all you have to do is fill in this panel. So what number do I want to round? And it's this one. And how many decimal places do I want? And I want 0 decimal places. And as with all functions, it shows you over here as you're doing it, what the result's going to be. So you can tell before you enter it if it's right. In this case, 4 is what I'm looking for. So I think I've got the right function. And it's working correctly. And yes, so I do need to order 4 pies. I want to round up. I don't want to round down. I'd rather have a little bit left over than have people leave hungry. Again, if I'm going over this any too quickly, just stop and ask me to go over it again. So now I can calculate my total cost. I've got all the pieces of data that I need. So my total cost is going to be equal to another formula, the number of pies, 4, times the cost per pie, and enter, and it's $48. But I do want to leave a tip, being kind and charitable. Another function, equal total cost times the amount of tip I'm going to leave. And $52.80 is what it's going to cost me to provide pizza for the party based on my assumptions. That's
So
a nice
wait.
thing. Yep, go ahead.
What if you have two different types? So you have a dollar sign and you have a percent sign in a formula. Is that too complicated? I mean, or do you have to convert it?
No, it does that automatically when you set the formatting for a cell. So this is formatted as a percent. If I change that to be just a general format, it's really stored as 0.1, not as 10. By changing it to percent, it changes it to 10%. But what's actually stored in the cell isn't changed. So
Okay.
you can mix those up like that, and it's not a problem.
So even if you had a fraction like 3 and 3/4, that would convert it. Like instead of the number of pies, you have 3.75. If you had 3 3/4, would it be able to convert that or no?
Yes, yeah, it would work fine. And you can, again, show how many decimal places you want to display. So if you want it to show fewer decimal places or more decimal places, you can change that. So again, that's just a matter of formatting.
Okay.
So on the actual number was 3.75, not 3.8. But yeah, those that's all pretty much taken care of.
Okay.
What's nice about the pizza calculator is you get this all done. And if I'd done that by hand with a manual calculator, and all of a sudden 3 people say they're not coming, oh, wow, now I got to redo the whole thing. But in this case, I just changed this to 12 instead of 15, and everything recalcs. Or maybe I know last time all the pizza was eaten and people were still hungry. So I may want to revise my assumption, let's say 2.5 slices per person instead of 2, and everything recalcs. Or they increase the price and they're now $13.50. So I can do that and quickly change any of my assumptions, and it changes my answer. That's the magic of spreadsheets to begin with. Works nice with calculators. The other thing you can do is, if this is something you do every month and you want to keep a running total of how much you're spending and how many people are coming and where your guesstimates are, you could actually just go ahead and put this one as maybe the March one, and then I'll go ahead and set it up for the April one. And all I have to do is just copy this over. So I can just copy, oops. I do the keyboard shortcuts, Control-C and Control-V, instead of copying and pasting. So maybe I had this as 2, and I found out that some people, we used up everything, so I change it for April. I update my assumptions based on what was happening, etc. So you can kind of get a running total also of how much you spend every month. Questions? Everybody kind of get the idea there? All right. Well, let's move on. We've kind of refreshed everybody on formulas and functions and how they work. Let's dig a little deeper into functions. So what we've got here is a table. And these are donations that are being made for some charitable cause. So I've got the last name, the first name, last name, street address, city, state, zip, and donation amount for each person that's donated so far. And we haven't gotten as many donations as we'd hoped. So we're going to run a program and provide a free gift for anyone that donates more than $50. So the people running the charity have asked me to revise the spreadsheet and figure out who needs to get a free gift. So we're going to do that. We're going to create added a column for free gift, and we're going to add a function. So let's go back to my functions. Let me slide this over just to, oh, there it is. And it's not one of those. So we'll come down here, and it is an if function that I want to use. And it's here in my list of recently used functions. So this is quick and easy to get to. Let me open this up and we'll talk about it. If you're not familiar with the if function, what it does is you create a logical test, something that can be answered true or false is a logical test, and then determine what do you do if it's true and what do you do if it's false. So that's the basic function structure of an if function. So here what we want to test is if the donation is greater than 50. That's the condition. If it's greater than 50, what we're going to do is just put the word gift. If I can spell correctly. You need to put it in double quotes. Anytime you're dealing with text strings, they need to be in double quotes. Otherwise, Excel is going to assume it's a cell reference. And some of you probably know this, but to show you what will happen, I'm just going to put that much in there and say okay, because that's really all I need to know. And I'll copy it down, and two ways to copy. You can drag the bottom right corner down and copy that way. I'll show you another way in a minute that I use instead most of the time. I use both. And this worked. It correctly told me the ones that are over 50, this worked, but it's got this ugly false in there. So I don't like that. So let's change our function, and I could go back, delete this, and start over. But if you're familiar with how functions work, you can actually just change it up here in the formula bar and put a comma and put the last part of that, which is what do I do if it's false? And what I'm typing here is saying if it's false, just put a space. And to do that, I just did double quote, space, double quote. So that's saying if it's true, put gift. If it's false, put space. Now I'm going to select this range, do a control down, control D for control down. What is it doing there? So now I'm storing spaces here, so it looks much nicer. And being a little bit anal, I'm going to center it, make it look even nicer. So that looks good. So now I've got which people need to give gifts. And as we get more and more people coming in, we'll just copy that formula down. Again, if you have questions about any of this, stop me.
How do you copy it down?
Two ways to copy it down. One way is to grab this bottom right corner and just drag, and that copies the contents all the way down. And the way I just did in this case, I, again, click the cell, hold the left mouse button, select the entire range that I want to copy down from, and then enter Control D on the keyboard. D for down, so Control down copies that first cell all the way down. There's a Control R to copy to the right. I like the keyboard shortcuts, so I'll tell you some of those as we're going through. Speaking of which, another nice little trick is if you want to know how many people have donated so far, you can just show through here, and you see down at the bottom right there, count 19. So it tells me there are 19 cells in that range. So it's a quick way to count how many people. You could tell it's row 20 and I didn't use row 1 and figure out 19 that way, but it's just a quick way to see how many cells you've selected. Count equal 19. Okay. All right. Let's do another one. Kind of help to get it down by doing a couple of different sounds. The if is a very versatile one, so I'm going to do another if, but it's slightly different. They came back and said that there's a rich guy in Texas that said he'll add $20 to any donation from the state of Texas. So we need to put that in there as well. So let's do another if. We'll come up here. More functions. If. Okay. So here's my if. So in this case, instead of testing an amount, I'm testing for a text string. So I'm testing if the state is equal to, and again, I'm testing on a string, so I've got to put double quote TX. So my logic test is if TX is the state, what do I do if that's true? If it's true, this amount is equal to the donation plus the extra $20 that this rich guy is going to add. If it's not Texas, it's just equal to the donation. And again, it does show you over here as you're doing it what the answer is going to be, so you can kind of tell if it's working. So it tells me that for this row, the test is false. That is not TX. That's correct. So I would use the false, and so the answer is going to be 52, which is correct. So I'll say okay, and I'm done. So in this case, it is 52. I'll use both ways of copying. I'll do the dragging down version of copying again. Copy this down. May want to double check and make sure it's working. That is Texas, so this should be 40, and that is correct. That's Mississippi. It should be the same. That's correct. So it looks like it's working. Of course, if I want to fix the formatting, I could make this be dollars, so it's formatted the same as the other one. Okay. Questions? Okay. You can also do text manipulation with functions. So let's do that. The people came back and said they need to have the first name and last name in a single cell so they can use it for mailing labels. So I'm going to just get the down arrow, left click, then right click and do insert to insert a new column there for the full name. Go down where I want my first function to be and go find an appropriate function. And what I'm actually wanting to do is concatenate the first name and the last name, these two cells into a third cell. So there's several different versions of that. And again, I could type. And this one says concatenate a list or range of text strings. That's what I want to do. So I'm going to choose that one. So again, I've got my function argument box. So it says, what's the first text string I want to use? And that's the first name. Now, what I want it to be is first name space last name. I don't want A and A to be jammed up against each other. So I want to insert a space here, double quote, space, double quote. So I've got the contents of A2 space, and then the contents of B2. And again, it's showing me what it's doing. Sylvia space Armstrong. That's what I want. Looks good. Trick you probably may or may not know. Go up here to where you get the double arrows and then double click, and it'll automatically make the cell wide enough to contain the widest cell in the column. And now I'll do it the other way. I'm going to hold the left mouse button, drag down, and do Control D to copy that down. Resize my column again because there's some wider ones in there. And I'm done. Just for fun and again, to show you this one more time, they come and look at this and say, that's great, except we wanted the last name and then the first name. So, okay, no problem. So I'm gonna take that out. Go back here again, get my concat function again, open it up again. Okay, so I wanna have last name. Then I wanna have double quote, comma space, double quote, and then first name. Let's look and see if it worked right. So I've got Armstrong, comma, Sylvia. Looks like what I'm looking for. Okay. Copy down. And now I've got it the way they want it. Okay. Questions, anyone? What questions can I answer about functions so far? This making sense? All right, great. Let's do one more. And so let's say this has worked, because I can, and now I've got 150 donations. So with just what I've got here, if I want to figure out how many gifts do I need to buy to give out, I can count this myself. But if I have 150, 200 people that have given by now, I need a function to tell me how many gifts I need. So I'm going to do that. So I'm going to put my cursor here and put the answer in this cell, total number of gifts. And I need a new function. And what I'm going to use for this one is a function called COUNTIF. Counts the number of cells within a range that meet a given condition. That's what I'm looking for. I want to count if the contents of the cell is equal to gift. That's what I want to do. That looks like the function I want. This one works a little different than the others we've done so far. Here you define the range first. So what range of cells am I looking at? I'm looking at everything from here down to here. I2 through I20. I could have typed I2 colon I20, but I like to use the cursor, use the mouse instead of typing. And then what's the criteria? What am I counting? And again, I'm counting anytime I find the string and it has to match exactly, GIFT. And again, it tells me it's found 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That looks correct. That's what I want. Any questions? Anyone need to see any of this again before we move on? All right. If not, let's go ahead and move on to the next sheet. So that's functions. The next thing we want to talk about is working with larger data sheets, spreadsheets, because that introduces a couple of problems. Working with this sheet, I can see everything in my table from here, so that's not a problem. As my tables get bigger, I run into problems. This is a table of sales results, sales data. So I've got the salesperson, I've got what region that salesperson works in, and I've got their sales for each month. So I'm good from here, but as I start going down here and moving around through my table, I've lost what is in G. I can still see who I'm working with, but I've lost my context up there. What I can do is use something called a freeze panes. So I click, and to get there, I clicked on the View tab. So there's different tabs up here. So we're going over to the View tab and freeze panes. And one of the options here is to freeze the top row. So that sounds like what I want. Let me scroll down, and indeed, as I scroll, that top row never scrolls off. I can always see which month I'm working on. That's good. However, as I'm working through my spreadsheet, looking around, all of a sudden now I've lost my columns. So I know I'm working in October of 2019, but I don't know who I'm working on or looking at. Another keyboard shortcut, Control Home, takes me back to the upper left part of my spreadsheet. So there's a way I can fix this as well. I'm going to go up here and unfreeze it, put it back like it was. And what I'm going to do is put my cursor and click on the cell that is where my data starts. So everything above my cursor are my column headers, and everything to the left of my cursor are my row headers. The salesperson in the region. So I don't want those to move. So I really want to freeze the top row and the left 2 columns and let me move through the rest of the spreadsheet. So I go to freeze panes, and the little icons show you what it's doing. You can see the blue says I'm freezing rows and columns. This one I was just freezing rows. This one I'm just freezing columns. So you can do any of the above. You could freeze just columns, just rows, or both. In this case, I want to freeze both. So now I've frozen the top row. It doesn't move. And I've frozen the left 2 columns. They don't move. So now I can navigate the entire spreadsheet without ever losing my context of which month I'm in and which salesperson's information I'm looking at. So that's freeze panes.
Wade, I have a question.
Sure.
So if I wanted to freeze the top row, that's fine. But then I wanted to freeze January, well, row C and row F for 2019 and 2020. How would I do that?
You can't, at least I'm always reluctant to use the word can't with Excel because it's got so many functions. I don't know of a way to get non-contiguous. I could freeze, I could move my cursor over here and freeze January plus the top row.
Okay.
By doing a freeze panes, let me unfreeze. And then if I do freeze panes again, now it's going to lock January.
Okay.
But I don't know of a way to lock January and March. I think they have to be contiguous.
Okay.
If you know that you're not going to need to look at February and March or whichever ones you don't want to look at, you can hide those columns.
You can do that, and that's actually a good segue to something we're going to do. But to do what she said, was that Susan?
Mary Jean.
Yes.
Okay, Mary Jean. Yeah, so you can do that. So if for whatever reason I don't want to see these 2 columns, I can just select those 2 columns, right click and hide. And now those 2 are hidden. I can still navigate around my spreadsheet and it sort of pretends like they're not there.
Okay.
When I'm done, I want them back. I just pick the columns on either side, right click and unhide, and they come back.
Okay.
So you could, you could do that. I could hide this one and then come over here and hide this one if I didn't want to see January and March, but I wanted to still see February. So you can do those sorts of things, which is actually a good segue in. Well, we're going to cover that in a second. Let's do sorting first. So we've been able to navigate through the table. Let's look at sorting the table. And to sort the table, we're going to click in the upper left-hand corner, and that selects the entire table. You notice the whole table is shaded. And we're going to go to data and sort. The first question it asks is, do I have headers? So basically saying, is that first row data or is it headers? And in my case, it is headers. I don't want this first row to get sorted down into the body of the table. I want it to stay at the top. So that basically freezes my top row. And so now I can sort. And if, say I want to sort by region. So I click region, sort it A to Z. Sounds good. And say, okay. So now I've sorted it all the east, all the north, all the south, all the west. So I've sorted my table. However, I haven't done anything with the salespeople. So maybe I want to sort by salesperson's name within region. So you can have multi-level sorts. Just go back to sort. I'll leave region. I could take this out or change it, but that one is what I want. But I want to add a new level, and you can add as many levels as you want. We'll just do 2 to show you how it works. I want to sort by salesperson within region. And sort alphabetically in both cases. Okay. So now I've got east, and I've sorted alphabetically within east, and then north, I start back alphabetically with each region. Maybe instead of sorting by the salesperson name, though, I'm probably more concerned about their performance. So if I wanted to sort it by performance in January, Just do one more to show you how this works. So I'm gonna click the whole table, come up here and sort. So instead of sorting by salesperson, I want to sort by January. And here I want to make it largest to smallest. I want the top guy on top, top salesperson. So now within each region, highest sales is first, and you go down to the laggard at the bottom, and you start over again with the top sales guy. Questions about sorting? Okay. All right. Let me go on to the next topic, which was sort of introduced before, is filters. If you click on the filters, just right beside the sort, it gives you this little icon here for your filters. And let's say, for example, I manage the East and South regions. I don't have anything to do with the others, so I don't want to see their data. I can either unselect all and pick mine, or I could have just gone in and changed it, but I have the East and the South. So it now has just East and South. And what it's done is it has hidden those others. You can tell I go from 9 to 18. That tells me I've got hidden information in there. So we showed you how to hide columns. You can hide rows the same way. And that's what the filter does. It goes in and does what I could have done manually by selecting those two. It does it for me automatically. If I wanted to, and if I want to clear the filter, you just click here. It puts it back like it was. Maybe I just want to see certain salespeople. There's certain people I want to look at for whatever reason. Unselect, select all, and then I just go in and pick the salespeople I want to look at. And those are the 3 I want to look at, and it hides everybody else. So it's very handy if you've got a big spreadsheet like this, lots of data in it, maybe multiple people are using the same spreadsheet, where you can sort it to see what you want to see. You can tell if you've filtered because the icon changes from a down arrow to a little filter, looks like this filter, to tell me I filtered by that column. So I can clear that filter again. Let me do one more, because maybe what I'm really interested in is performance again. These are salespeople. So I want to filter, but what I want to filter by is number filters. And I can say I'm looking for everybody that's sold more than 10,000. So I can say filter if it's greater than 10,000. And again, you can see that you can have a more complex greater than something and or add another choice. So you can have a very complex selection criteria. I'm going to make it simple. I'm just saying, show me everybody that sold more than 10,000. One more quickly here.
So you just did that for January, but I see all the other months are in there too. So it went across and it did all the months, or?
It selected based on this column, but it showed me these people's performance for the other months.
Okay.
But it's, yeah. So it acts on the entire table based on just the column I'm working on.
Okay.
Yeah. So if I wanted to see who were the top salespeople in February, I'd have to undo this one and go do that one. Clear this filter.
Well, would you have to undo that one? Would you have to undo January?
Yeah, because some of these people are not in, maybe the top salesman in February wasn't in the top. Say this guy in February was less than 10,000, so that person wouldn't have been in the list. But in February, in March, he had 18,000, so he should have been in the list. So let me do it again just to show you what I'm saying. So greater than 10,000. Maybe this guy in February. Well,
I see.
so here's one. There's a person down here that isn't in the list that sold more than 10,000 in February, but they can't be in the list for the second month because they weren't in the list for the first month.
Okay.
So it's a unique criteria for each month. So you're not
Okay.
subsetting across. One last thing I'll show you, then we'll move on. But there's another filter that's used a lot is top 10, especially in things like this, evaluating salespeople. So instead of setting a certain level, I want to just see the top 10 for that month. And if I want to sort that, I can sort it largest to smallest while I'm within the filter, just by clicking on the filter. I may have done that too quickly, and doing sort by. So filtering combines sorting with filtering. Okay. All right, let's move on. I'm going to keep an eye on the time here, but the next couple of things won't take as long as the first thing. But we're going to move to our next spreadsheet here. And we're going to work on charts and graphs. And this is fairly simple, especially if you're doing just simple charts and graphs. So this is a bookseller. They want to know, this is their sales volume by a genre. And they want to get an idea of which genres are working out the best for them. So you select the information you want to graph, come up to Insert tab, and come over here to Charts. And you can see the different charts here. So I can go and pick, so maybe I want to start with a bar chart. So I can click the down arrow and it'll show me all my options. I can do a side-by-side 2D. I can do a side-by-side stacked. I can do a 3D side-by-side, 3D stacked, etc. Let's do a 3D side-by-side. And there's my chart. And I can move that around on my spreadsheet. I can give it a title. Sales by genre, whatever. And you can see that in January, mystery did best, but for the other 3 other months, it was romance did best. So that's what charts do. It gives you a quick picture of performance. If I wanted to also have take a look at a line chart, I can pick what I want to chart, come back to Insert, come over here to the line charts, click the down arrow. Again, I can pick if I want just lines, or do I want to have the data points highlighted on the lines? I'll pick that one. And then here's my chart. I can move this over here to the side, give it a title, etc. So very quick and easy to do a basic chart. And if you're not sure what type you want to use or you should use, again, I'll select my information and go back and insert again. Excel gives you recommended charts. So it knows the type of data you're looking at and will recommend what type of charts are going to work best and show you examples. So they kind of take some of the guesswork out of it. You can still pick the one that you liked because maybe you like stacked bar charts instead of the others. So you can see before you click it and say, I like that one. And so now I've added another chart. So the recommended is helpful if you're new to charting and you're not sure which one's going to work best and you want to see options, you can go into there. So that's charting. You can get more complicated for each one of the charts. I'll move this out of the way. If you click on the chart, it has like a little plus sign where you can go in and change the elements. You can do lots of different things with it, but for this class, we're going to just do simple charts and graphs. Questions?
You have that on the screen right now. Can you print it from the things you've got on the screen, or would you have to print each chart and graph separately?
Great question and great segue. And we'll come back to this page in case anybody else have any other questions about the charts before I segue into printing. Because we're about, yeah, we're getting coming to the end of the time, but that's the last thing we're going to talk about is printing. So let's talk about that. So let me first just go to printing, and that's under the File tab, File Print. And what it does by default is it prints the active spreadsheet, the one that where I am. And so it's showing me everything I could see looking at that spreadsheet. And I can do some of the basic things you can do most places. I can change it from portrait to landscape. Maybe it'll make it fit better. It fits pretty well. So I can see everything I could see, but let's say I don't want to see everything. Let me go back here. Maybe I just want to see that one. I only want to print that one. I looked at all of them. This is the one I like best. So I can click on it to select it, go back to File Print, and it's going to just print that one that I selected. That's controlled here in this drop down where it says Print Selected Chart. If I go back and unselect, it says Print Active Sheet. And you also have an option to print the entire workbook. So if I select here, it's going to print all the tabs, all the sheets in the workbook. It'll take 11 pages to print them all. You can kind of click through and see all the different things it's going to print. So you have the option of just a selected part of a sheet, the entire active sheet, or the entire workbook. There's our pizza party calculator. Everybody see how that works? And you can even select. So maybe I want to print just genre and January information. You can select that. Now, if I go File Print, I'm going to say Print Selection, print what I selected. It's just going to print that one column, just the January information.
So say you want the lines or the grid marks. Did you show us that?
Yep. And a couple of ways to do that. Let's do this because that's where I was going next anyway, and I can incorporate a couple of things into one. Let's go back to our bigger spreadsheet and let me take out this filter, get it back like it was, and print this. And so we're going to print just this active sheet. And one of the problems with a larger data set is that it's printing the entire sheet, but it would take a magnifying glass, if not a microscope, to read it. Because what it's doing is it's fit the sheet onto one page. So it's basically scaling it so it fits on one page. Let's take that out and just have no scaling. So now it's readable, but it's on 6 pages. So that's kind of ugly. A couple of things we can do about this. First thing, that the second page only has 2 rows. So I can go back, I can go into my margins. And I can either just try narrow, which is probably going to work. Nope, it's still 6. So what we do something else. Let me go into custom margins, and let's make the bottom be smaller and the top be smaller. Oops. And now I'm down to 3 pages. So that shrunk, but it's still very readable. But what I've still got is a problem we had when we did the freeze panes. If I go to page 2, I've lost the salesperson in the region. It's probably hard to see, but you can tell by what's there that I don't have that salesperson or region. So I need to do something similar to what I did with the freeze pane. so that for every printed page, I've got this region and salesperson. So that's going to one more function quickly before I run out of time. So let's go back to my spreadsheet, and we have to go to page layout and print titles. And this description isn't very descriptive, but that's what where you go. And somebody was asking about grid lines.
Yeah.
This is where I can turn on the grid lines. But I also want to do the same thing I did with the freeze pane. Now I don't need to freeze the top pane because I've taken care of that, but I need to freeze the columns at the left. So what I want to do is click here and say freeze this column and this column. So it's saying freeze A and B. And I can say okay. And let me go back and see now what it looks like. So now I've got my grid lines in here. And as I go page to page, these two columns don't change. So now it's very readable. Takes 3 pages to get it all, but it all fits and is readable. And it's cleaned up with the grid lines. Right. We are out of time. So I do need to move on to the closing because I know some of you may be trying to get to another class. So, but we did get through everything here. So this is the end of the official class. And I do want to thank you for attending the class. Hopefully you enjoyed the class and learned some things about Excel that you didn't know already, and that you'll share your experiences on social media if you're a social media person. And in terms of related classes, there is the Excel Basics class I talked about. And Excel is using OneDrive. So if you're not familiar with OneDrive, that's another related class that you might be interested in taking. I want to go to the closing slides to explain what's going to happen after class, especially for anyone that hasn't been in our classes before. After class, there'll be an email coming out, and there are several sections in that email. There'll be some class notes, and there'll be links to several websites in there, which have related information, cover some of the same information we covered in class, as well as some related information we didn't cover in class today. There'll be links to 3 other classes you can click on to register. There'll be a give feedback link, brings up the feedback page, very quick feedback. All you have to do is rate the session 1 to 5 stars and rate the guide 1 to 5 stars. There's a place to add comments, and we certainly hope you'll add comments, not required, but greatly appreciated. And done, and you're finished. We hope you're enjoying being part of Get Set Up and want to become more active in our community. And there's several ways to do that. Certainly one way is to spread the word about Get Set Up and how it works with other people that you know. If you're interested in hosting an interest group or a social group, I don't know if you're not familiar with those terms, so I can show you on our website how to get to those groups. But for instance, there's not an Excel group. But if you're interested in getting together with other people that like Excel and sharing ideas and tips and tricks and things, we can create an Excel interest group. And if you would be interested in hosting a group like that, we'd love to hear from you. Just let us know at helpitgetsetup.io that you'd like to host a Excel interest group. You can suggest classes that you would like to see. So if you'd like to see an Excel advanced class, for example, send an email to helpitgetsetup.io and tell us what kind of classes you'd like to see. And finally, as I mentioned at the top of the class, to request a copy of the recording, same email address, helpitgetsetup.io. The last link in the email takes you to our website where you can book another class. Our website changed several weeks ago. Hopefully you've kind of figured it out by now. I'm going to just show you a couple of things very quickly because we're out of time. But I did want to show you how you get to your schedule. So there's a link on the home page here. If you want to see which classes you're registered for, just click View My Complete Schedule. It'll take you to the schedule page. And then My Schedule is where you would see your classes. I'm not signed up for anything, but your schedule would be here. You could click here to launch classes. Don't have to keep that email. You can come straight to our website to launch into a class. Okay. If you're looking for a class, I think the easiest way to find it is through the search. So if you're looking for that Excel basics class, maybe you want to go back and see what you may have missed in that one. If you haven't taken that one, just click Excel basics and it'll take you here to the class. One thing we've added is that if you have some friends and maybe you want to take the class together. So if you've got a friend that's also an Excel person, you say, hey, let's take the class at the same time. You can send them a link. And if you click here, you can send that person a link via Facebook, WhatsApp, or just an email. Link to the class saying, hey, I'm taking this class. Why don't you take it as well? So you can have people in the class that you know. And the last thing here is people have asked about is if you go to the About the Guide, it'll tell you about the person teaching this class. Russ is teaching this class. If you like Russ's teaching, we now have a Other Classes I Teach tab here. It'll show you all the classes that Russ teaches. And you can look through this and see if he is teaching some other classes. Maybe you want to take his Word Basics class or any of the other classes. So you can see all the classes that a guide teaches, basically. Okay, so I ran over by 2 minutes. I apologize for that, but I do want to thank you for attending. Hope you enjoyed the class and hope I see you again in the class really soon. Thanks for coming.
Thanks so
and have a
much.
great day. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Wade.
Thanks. Bye now.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Alice. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Have a great day.
Bye.